When a stranger leaned toward me on the train and whispered, "Don't get off at your stop," I thought he was just another commuter trying to be creepy. But the way he said it, calm, deliberate, almost warning me, froze me in place. I remember laughing softly under my breath, pretending not to hear him, until I looked up and saw who was waiting for me on the platform. That was the moment everything in my life changed. If you're watching this, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because what happened after that warning on the train will make you question who you can really trust. My name is Rachel Myers. I'm 29, I live in Chicago, and I take the 7:45 Red Line train to work every morning. It's always the same routine, same coffee, same seat by the window, same tired faces heading downtown. Life has been quiet lately, too quiet. After what happened with my ex-boyfriend, I've been trying to rebuild myself piece by piece, convincing everyone, including my family, that I'm okay. But the truth is, I haven't felt safe in months. Tom Evans, my ex, wasn't the kind of man who yelled or threw things. He was worse, charming, persuasive, and impossible to say no to. When he wanted something, he found a way to get it, especially me. When I finally left him after 3 years, I thought it was over. I moved apartments, changed my phone number, and even got a restraining order after he started showing up outside my work. The police arrested him once, but he was out again within a month. I told myself he'd moved on. That morning felt ordinary, even peaceful. The sky was gray, the city wrapped in that familiar winter silence. I had my earbuds in, half listening to music, half drifting into thought. The rhythmic clatter of the train tracks was almost comforting. Across from me sat a man I didn't recognize. He wasn't young, maybe late 30s, dressed plainly in a dark jacket and jeans. He wasn't staring, but I could tell he was watching people closely, studying, not judging. I caught his reflection in the window once or twice and noticed how still he sat. His hands rested on his knees, his gaze calm but alert. I told myself he was probably harmless, maybe a detective, maybe just another commuter lost in his thoughts. As the train slowed at my stop, Addison Station, I stood, slung my bag over my shoulder, and reached for the pole to steady myself. That's when he leaned forward slightly and said in a quiet, almost flat tone, "Don't get off at your stop." The words were so soft that I almost didn't hear them. I froze mid-step and looked at him. "Sorry, what?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me, expression steady, eyes locked on mine like he was silently begging me to listen. For a second, I thought about calling him out, asking if he was joking, but something in his face stopped me. It wasn't anger or rudeness. It was fear, real fear. The doors slid open, and the usual rush of passengers moved past me. The cold air swept into the car, and I turned toward the platform. That's when my body went cold. Standing outside, just beyond the glass, was Tom. He was wearing the same gray hoodie I'd seen him in the night I left him. His hands were tucked into his pockets, his head tilted slightly, and his eyes locked straight on me. Not around me, not searching for me, at me. He was smiling, a slow, deliberate smile that told me everything I needed to know. He'd found me again. My heart started racing. My instinct screamed to get off, to run, to end whatever this was. But then I remembered the stranger's warning. I looked back at him. He was still sitting in the same spot, still calm, still watching me. The doors were about to close. I had seconds to decide. Tom took one step closer to the window, his face now inches from the glass. He mouthed my name, Rachel. The stranger shook his head slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. The doors slid shut. The train started moving again. I stood frozen near the door, my hands trembling. The man exhaled quietly, almost like he'd been holding his breath. For the next few seconds, all I could hear was the sound of the tracks beneath us and the pounding of my own heart. When I finally managed to speak, my voice barely came out. "How did you know?" The man didn't answer. He just looked out the window as the platform disappeared behind us. That's when I realized I hadn't told anyone about my new route. Not my friends, not my coworkers, not even my brother, Michael. So how could this stranger have known who was waiting for me? And what did he mean by "don't go home tonight"? because those were the next words that would come out of his mouth before I realized this was only the beginning. The train rattled forward, carrying me away from the platform and the man I never wanted to see again. My hands were shaking so hard that I had to grip the metal pole just to stay balanced. I tried to convince myself that it wasn't really Tom, that maybe I had imagined it, or maybe it was someone who just looked like him. But deep down, I knew. You don't forget the face of someone who once made you afraid to fall asleep. The stranger across from me hadn't moved. He sat there with the same calm expression, his hands folded, staring out the window like nothing unusual had happened. I wanted to thank him, but my voice was caught in my throat. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket, and when I took it out, my heart nearly stopped. There was a message from an unknown number. "You still take the 7:45, huh?" My chest tightened. I didn't respond. A moment later, another message came in. "You look beautiful when you're scared." I turned off my phone and shoved it into my bag. My throat felt dry. I looked at the stranger again, and this time I spoke. "Do you know him? The man on the platform?" He turned his head slowly toward me. His voice was low, but steady. "I told you not to get off." "That doesn't answer my question." He looked around, making sure no one was listening. "You shouldn't be alone today." Every instinct in me screamed to get away from him. I didn't know if he was trying to help me or manipulate me. My eyes darted toward the other passengers. They were oblivious, scrolling on their phones, reading papers, sipping coffee. Ordinary people living their ordinary lives, while I sat trapped between fear and confusion. "How do you know him?" I demanded. "I've seen him follow you," the man said, 3 times this week. My heart skipped. "That's not possible. I would have noticed." He shook his head. "You never look up." I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I noticed something softer beneath the coldness, something that almost looked like guilt. "Someone who knows what happens when you ignore the signs," he said quietly. The train slowed again. My stop was long gone. We were heading toward the downtown loop now, closer to the crowded end of the line. I glanced out the window. The city's gray skyline blurred past, and for the first time, I noticed a black sedan driving along the tracks on the street below, keeping pace with the train. My stomach turned. I couldn't tell if it was following us, but every time the train slowed, the car did too. I turned to the stranger. "You see that car?" He nodded once. "Don't make it obvious." "Who's in it?" He looked at me again. "The same man who was waiting at your stop." That was enough for panic to take over. I stood up, ready to move to another car, but the stranger's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but firm enough to stop me. "If you walk now, he'll see you through the window," he said. "Wait for my cue." "Your cue?" I snapped. "I don't even know who you are." He released my wrist slowly. "Call your brother," he said. "Tell him not to go home tonight." The mention of Michael's name sent a chill down my spine. "How do you know my brother?" He didn't answer. His gaze shifted to the window again, following the black car as it disappeared into the maze of streets. I could see a pulse of worry flicker across his face now. Whatever calmness he had before was cracking. The train pulled into another station. People filed out. The stranger stood and motioned for me to stay seated. He stepped toward the door, looked outside briefly, then sat back down across from me. "He's not at this stop," he said. "You're safe for now." My pulse refused to slow. "You keep saying I'm safe, but you're not telling me anything. Who are you? What does Tom want from me?" The man looked at me for a long moment, then said quietly, "He doesn't just want you scared, he wants you alone." The words hit hard because they were true. Tom always thrived on control. Fear was his favorite weapon. Even after he was gone, he found ways to make me feel like I belonged to him. The stranger reached into his jacket and pulled out something small, a folded photograph. He slid it across the seat toward me. "You need to see this," he said. I hesitated before picking it up. My breath caught when I unfolded it. It was a picture of me, sitting on this same train, wearing the same clothes I had on now. The photo had been taken less than an hour ago. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. "He sent it to me," the stranger said. "He wants me to bring you to him." My stomach dropped. "What?" I told him I would. "That's how I got close enough to warn you." I stared at him, speechless. Why? His eyes lowered. Because I didn't help the last woman he followed. The train lurched suddenly, jerking us both forward. I gripped the pole and looked toward the window. The black sedan had returned, pacing us again. The stranger stood and moved to block my view. Don't look. He's watching. Fear clawed its way up my chest. I couldn't tell if this man had saved me or trapped me. I didn't even know which danger to fear more, the one outside the train or the one sitting across from me. Next stop, he said firmly. You're getting off with me. If you go anywhere else, you won't make it. The announcement echoed overhead. Clark and Division Station. As the train began to slow, I caught one last glimpse out the window. Standing on the next platform, through the crowd, I saw him again. Tom. Same gray hoodie, same cold grin. But now he wasn't alone. There were two men beside him, both wearing dark jackets. And this time, one of them looked straight at me, smiled, and lifted a phone. My phone buzzed a second later. A new message. See you soon. The doors opened. The stranger looked at me and said, You need to trust me now. I didn't know it yet. But that single decision, whether to trust him or run, would decide if I made it out alive. The train doors slid open, and for a split second, I couldn't move. The noise of the city rushed in, car horns, footsteps, and the low hum of morning commuters filling the platform. The stranger turned to me and said, We're getting off here. Stay close. Don't talk. Don't look back. Everything in me screamed to run in the opposite direction. I didn't know if I was escaping danger or walking straight into it. But then I glanced at my phone screen again. That message, see you soon. The thought of Tom waiting for me froze my body with fear. My hands trembled as I followed the stranger out of the train, keeping a few steps behind him. The platform was crowded. People brushed past us, oblivious. The stranger moved quickly, blending into the crowd like he'd done this 100 times before. I tried to steady my breathing, clutching my bag tight against my chest. Every sound made me flinch. The screech of the rails, a man's laughter, the echo of footsteps too close behind me. We took the stairs 2 at a time and emerged onto a busy downtown street. The winter air bit into my skin. The stranger stopped at the edge of the sidewalk and turned to me. There's a cafe across the street, he said quietly. Go in, sit by the front window, and stay there until it's full of people. Why? I asked, my voice shaking. Because he can't grab you in public, he said. Not if there are witnesses. My throat tightened. You're talking like you know him. He looked away for a moment. I do. I followed his gaze and saw something in his expression. Something that wasn't just fear. It was guilt. He shoved his hands in his pockets and said, I had a sister. She didn't listen when I warned her. He found her 2 days later. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. Your sister? I whispered. He nodded once. Her name was Natalie. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. I remembered reading about it months ago. A woman murdered by her ex-boyfriend just outside the city. I'd seen the news headline, skimmed it, and scrolled past it. I never realized the man responsible was the same one who used to share my bed. I thought that story was about someone else, I said, my voice breaking. I didn't know. That's how he works, the stranger said. He makes you feel like you're the only one, and when you try to leave, he makes sure you regret it. My knees felt weak. I could barely hold my bag. The crowd moved around us like we were invisible. What do I do now? I whispered. He pointed toward the cafe. You wait. I'll make sure he loses your trail. I wanted to argue, to demand answers, but there wasn't time. He crossed the street first, scanning the intersections as he walked. I followed close behind, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out the sound of the traffic. The cafe was small and warm, filled with the smell of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon. I found a seat by the front window just as the stranger had said. He stayed outside for a moment, glancing up and down the street, then disappeared into the crowd. I pressed my hands against the cup of coffee I ordered, trying to stop the shaking. People around me talked and laughed, their world so normal it felt surreal. Every time the door opened, my stomach twisted. Minutes passed. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but curiosity won. The message wasn't from an unknown number this time. It was from my brother, Michael. Where are you? Someone came to the house asking for you. I typed back quickly, who? No response. I called him, but it went straight to voicemail. My chest tightened. I could feel the panic crawling back. I looked out the window, scanning every face that passed by. That's when I saw it. Parked halfway down the street. The same black sedan. The same car that had followed the train. My heart dropped. The driver's seat was empty, but the passenger door was slightly open. I stood up from my chair, trying not to draw attention, and stepped toward the door. I wanted to run, to find the stranger again, to get answers. But before I could leave, the cafe door swung open. The stranger walked in. For a moment, relief flooded through me, until I noticed something different. His face was pale, his eyes darting nervously toward the street. "We have to go," he said. "Now." "What happened?" I asked. "He's not alone this time," he said quietly, "and he knows where your brother lives." The words hit me like ice. "What do you mean he knows where my brother lives?" He grabbed my hand, his grip tight. He sent me another picture. I pulled back, demanding to see it. He hesitated, then showed me his phone. It was a photo of Michael's car parked outside his house, and someone sitting in the driver's seat. I felt the world close in. "That's my brother," I whispered. The stranger's jaw tightened. "No, look closer." I stared at the photo again. The man in the car looked like Michael. Same build, same uniform, same haircut. But his eyes were wrong. Too dark, too still. "That's not him," I said in disbelief. The stranger nodded. "He's using someone to get close to you. He wants you to come home." I staggered backward, gripping the edge of the table. "He's trying to make me think my brother's in danger." "He doesn't need to make you think it," the stranger said. "He just needs you to panic enough to come to him." The noise of the cafe seemed to fade. My breath came in short bursts. Everything felt unreal. The photo, the warning, the fact that I was standing in public, yet every nerve in my body screamed, "Run." I looked at the stranger, desperate. "What do we do now?" He glanced out the window one more time, then said, "We go somewhere he can't find us." "Where?" He met my eyes. "Home isn't safe, but I know a place he'll never look." Something about the way he said it scared me almost as much as Tom did. Still, I followed him out the door, because in that moment, the only thing more terrifying than trusting a stranger was facing my past alone. The stranger led me through the maze of downtown streets, moving fast, but never running. The city felt colder than before, the air heavier, the people more distant. I tried to memorize every turn, every street sign, but my head was spinning. My mind kept repeating the same question: who can I trust? The man walking in front of me had saved me from one danger, but I couldn't shake the fear that he might be leading me into another. We turned into an older part of town, where the noise of the city began to fade. The buildings were narrow, their brick walls covered in faded posters and graffiti. The stranger stopped at a side entrance to an old maintenance building near the elevated tracks. The sign above the rusted door read, "Authorized personnel only." He looked around once, then pushed it open. "Go inside," he said quietly. I hesitated. "Why here?" "Because this is where he can't see us," he said, stepping in first. The smell of dust and oil filled the air. The room was dim, lit only by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. It looked like an abandoned storage space. Old train parts, metal shelves, and a small desk shoved into the corner. My footsteps echoed as I followed him inside. He closed the door behind us and turned the lock. "You're safe here for now." My nerves were raw. "Safe?" I said sharply. "You said that before. You keep saying that, and every time, something worse happens." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing slightly. "You don't understand what he's capable of." "Then make me understand," I snapped. "Tell me why you know so much about him. Tell me why you care what happens to me." He stopped pacing and looked at me. For the first time since we met, his eyes softened. "Because I helped him once." The words hit me like a punch. "You what?" "I didn't know who he really was," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "When he met my sister, I thought he was just a good guy trying to start over. He came to me for help after they broke up, said he just wanted to talk to her, to make things right. I gave him her address. She was dead 2 days later." The silence that followed was deafening. My stomach twisted. He looked down at his hands like they still carried the weight of it. I've spent the last year trying to track him, he continued. The restraining order, the phone numbers, the fake accounts. It's how he finds people. I knew your name because he used it in one of his messages. That's when I realized he'd found someone new. My throat went dry. So all of this, was to stop him. He nodded. I couldn't save her, but I can save you. Before I could respond, the sound of a car engine outside cut through the silence. It idled low and steady, too close. The stranger moved quickly to the small window and looked out. His expression hardened. He found us. My pulse spiked. How? He didn't answer. He motioned for me to stay quiet and backed away from the window. The sound of the car door opening echoed from outside, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps crunching against gravel. Then, a knock. Not on the main door, but on the side wall, like someone was tapping metal with their knuckles. The stranger mouthed, "Stay here," and moved toward the door with his hand on the handle of a small knife clipped to his belt. I crouched behind a metal shelf, holding my breath. My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure whoever was outside could hear it. Then came the voice, calm, familiar, and haunting. "Rachel, you've been busy." It was Tom. I froze in place. The sound of my name from his mouth felt like poison. The stranger tightened, his grip on the knife. Tom's voice came again, softer this time. "You can open the door. I'm not mad. I just want to talk." The stranger turned to me. "He's trying to get in your head," he whispered. "I know," I said, my voice trembling. Then Tom said something that made my blood run cold. "You shouldn't trust him, Rachel. You know that, don't you?" My breath caught. He couldn't see us. How did he know there was someone with me? The stranger's jaw clenched. "He's watching through the cameras," he said. "Security system outside. I should have disabled it." Tom's voice was closer now. "You didn't tell her who you really are, did you?" "Should I?" The stranger froze. I looked at him, panic rising in my throat. What is he talking about? He didn't answer. His eyes darted toward the window, then back to me. "He's lying." Tom laughed. "He didn't tell you his name, did he? Ask him, Rachel. Ask him his name." I felt my stomach twist as I whispered, "Who are you?" He opened his mouth to answer, but before he could, the door handle rattled violently. Then the window shattered, spraying glass across the room. A hand reached through, fumbling for the lock. The stranger lunged forward, slamming the man's arm against the frame, and I heard Tom grunt in pain. "Run!" the stranger shouted. I didn't hesitate. I bolted toward the back of the room, shoving open a small service door that led to the train yard behind the building. The cold air hit my face as I stumbled outside. Behind me, I heard the sounds of struggle, grunts, footsteps, the crash of metal. I ran between the parked train cars, my breath coming in sharp gasps. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, but I didn't dare look. I reached the far fence and tried to climb, but my hands were slippery with sweat. Then I heard footsteps approaching fast. I spun around, expecting Tom, but it was the stranger, blood on his shirt, breathing hard. "Come on," he said, reaching for me. "We have to go." But something was wrong. His tone was different now, rushed, frantic, almost desperate. And then I saw it, a small cut on his wrist, right where a metal watch used to be. The same watch Tom used to wear. "Where's Tom?" I demanded. He didn't answer. His eyes darted to the left, then back to me. "Where's Tom?" I shouted again. And then, in a voice that was suddenly too calm, too familiar, he said, "Right here." The world seemed to tilt. My lungs locked up. I stepped back slowly as he smiled, the same cold, careful smile I'd seen on the platform that morning. He reached out his hand. "You shouldn't have trusted strangers, Rachel. You never were good at that." For a moment, I thought about running again. But when I looked behind him, I saw something. A shadow moving through the fog. Another figure running toward us. The real stranger. He tackled Tom to the ground before I could even scream. The two of them fought viciously, fists slamming against gravel, the sound echoing in the empty yard. Tom tried to grab the knife, but the stranger got to it first. One sharp movement, and it was over. Tom went still. The stranger knelt beside him, breathing heavily, his face pale under the flickering streetlight. "It's done," he said. I sank to my knees. shaking uncontrollably. The train horn blared in the distance, the sound mixing with the pounding of my heart. When the police arrived minutes later, the stranger was gone. No name, no explanation, only the trail of blood leading away from the scene and the echo of his final words. "You're safe now. Don't ever look back." And even though I wanted to believe him, deep down, I knew I never truly would. When the sirens faded and the flashing lights disappeared, all that remained was the cold air and the sound of trains passing in the distance. I sat on the back of an ambulance wrapped in a blanket, my hands trembling as a police officer asked me the same questions over and over. What happened? Who attacked you? Where did he go? Every time I tried to answer, my mind blurred the edges of what was real. The truth was, I didn't know anymore. Tom was dead. The officers found him near the tracks, the knife still beside him, his blood mixing with the dirt. They asked if I killed him. I said no, but when they asked who did, I couldn't answer that either, because the man who saved me, the stranger who had known my name, my route, my past, had vanished. He left no ID, no trace, not even a fingerprint on the knife handle. It was as if he had never existed. The detective assigned to the case, a woman named Detective Harris, sat beside me with a calm, tired voice. "We'll get you somewhere safe for the night," she said. "Your brother's been notified. He's on his way." But when she said that, my heart dropped. "My brother?" I asked. "Michael?" She nodded. "He said he'd meet you at the hospital." My throat tightened. The last photo, the one Tom had sent, flashed in my mind. Michael's car, someone sitting in the driver's seat, a face that looked almost like his, but not quite. Can I see him first?" I asked. She hesitated. "He's on the way. Just rest for now." I didn't rest. I couldn't. Every sound outside the ambulance, a car engine, a door closing, footsteps on the gravel, made my pulse race. When I finally got to the hospital, the officers guided me through the hallways like I was made of glass. Everything felt too bright, too clean, too calm. When the door opened and I saw Michael standing there, a wave of relief nearly knocked me over. He looked exhausted but safe. He ran to me, hugged me tight, and whispered, "It's over now, Rachel." For the first time all night, I cried. My brother rubbed my back, telling me it was okay, that Tom couldn't hurt me anymore. The doctors checked me, patched the small cuts on my arms, and said I'd be fine. But something in my gut wouldn't settle. When the nurse left, I noticed Michael still wearing his police jacket, even though he'd been off duty. His hair was wet, like he'd just showered. I told myself not to think too much. Trauma plays tricks on the mind. But as he sat beside me, I couldn't help staring at his hands. They were shaking slightly, and there was a faint reddish mark near his wrist, almost like a cut. "You're okay," he said softly. "You did the right thing calling for help." "I didn't call," I whispered. "The police came on their own." He paused for half a second, too short for most people to notice, but long enough for me to feel it. Then he smiled. "Then someone was looking out for you." The words sounded familiar, too familiar. I'd heard them before, from the stranger, that day on the train. Someone who's looking out for you. My body stiffened. "Michael," I said quietly, "how did you know where I was tonight?" He met my eyes. His smile faded. "They told me." "Who?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "The department. They said you were found near the yard. That there was a man." I studied his face. Every feature was the same, every detail as I remembered, but his voice had a strange edge now, too calm, too even. I shifted slightly, clutching the blanket tighter. "You didn't come from home, did you?" He looked down. "No, I came straight from work." But his uniform didn't have the right patch. It was from his old division, the one he left months ago. I opened my mouth to speak, but just then, Detective Harris entered the room. "Rachel," she said, "we need to ask a few follow-up." She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes darting from me to Michael. "Who are you talking to?" I blinked. "My brother. He's right." The chair beside me was empty. The blanket slipped from my shoulders as I stood, my heart pounding in my throat. Detective Harris stepped forward carefully, her eyes narrowing. "Rachel," she said gently, "your brother's not here. He's downstairs. He's been waiting to see you." My lips trembled. "No, He was just sitting right here. She looked around the room, then back at me. You're in shock. Let's get you some water. But when I turned back toward the chair, something caught my eye. Resting on the seat was a folded piece of paper. My hands shook as I picked it up. In neat handwriting, the note said, "He's gone now. Don't ever take the train at 7:45 again." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that stranger's face, the way he'd looked at me on the train, steady, knowing, protective, and haunted. Whoever he was, he'd saved my life. But I also knew something else now. He hadn't been random. He'd been connected to Tom, to Michael, maybe even to something bigger. In the weeks that followed, the police ruled Tom's death as self-defense. My brother stayed by my side, never mentioning that night. But sometimes, when we're driving past the train tracks or through the city at dawn, I catch him glancing into the rearview mirror, watching something I can't see. And every morning, when the 7:45 red line passes my street, I hear the faint echo of a man's voice whispering in my mind, "Don't get off at your stop." It's strange how one sentence can change your entire life. That day, a stranger's warning saved me, but it also taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes, danger isn't waiting for you on the platform. Sometimes, it's sitting right beside you, wearing a face you trust. So if you're ever on a train and someone tells you not to get off, maybe listen, because you never know what's waiting for you when the doors open. If you made it this far, subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what you'd do if a stranger whispered, "Don't get off at your stop."